Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm honored to be here tonight. I'm Margaret Ioannidis, the Online LLM Program Director with the University of Dayton School of Law. We want to thank Mackenzie Presbyterian University for the invitation to participate in tonight's webinar. Tonight's webinar is part of a series of webinars that we are co-hosting with your university, and this is through a partnership with University of Dayton School of Law. I will be back on at the end of tonight's webinar to provide additional details about the partnership and about the online LLM program. With us tonight, we have two distinguished professors who will be discussing transnational lawyers in a globalized world. Our first speaker, Professor Pablo Ianello, is a professor in our online LLM program. He actually is teaching Introduction to U.S. Law in the current semester. So I'd like to turn things over to Professor Ianello.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Thank you to Vicente, Diane, and the Presbyterian University for allowing me to be here with you and with all the audience. Let me begin by, well, that's a little bit of my background. I don't know if we want to spend too much time on that. Basically, I'm an attorney. I'm not from the US, I'm from Argentina. In fact, right now, estoy en Buenos Aires. So if you want, we can speak some Portuñol. But I think that for the sake of the LLM, we will do this in English. It would be better. So basically, I'm an attorney, and I've been a visiting professor at UD Law School from the last 8 years. And right now, as Margaret mentioned, I'm teaching in the online LLM. I have had that great opportunity during this semester. So I won't have the chance to stay for long with you tonight, but you have my email at the very beginning of the presentation. So in case you want me to send any questions, but I know that Professor Vicente gladly accepted to answer all the questions that you might have at the end of this presentation. So let me introduce some basics of what I would like to share with you tonight. We can move to the next slide, please. So basically, when you are working in a transnational environment, an international environment, I don't know if any of you would like to pursue a career involving international transactions, international law. There is a key concept that you must be aware of, which is legal risk. Okay, basically, legal risk is related to the impact that different legal systems might have on a certain transaction. And I'm talking about all type of transactions that you can imagine. We can start discussing from different type of contracts, sales contract, licensing contracts, or M&A process that might include some antitrust issues. Perhaps Professor Vicente would like to discuss that a little bit further after these minutes. The thing is that, for example, if you're on an M&A process and you are based in Brazil, then you might be dealing with the antitrust authority of the United States, for example, or the European antitrust authority. So it could be a good piece of advice for you to have a little knowledge of different legal background. That's the first thing that I would like to share with you tonight. Always remember that understanding different legal system will provide you an advantage for you as a lawyer and also for the clients that you are advising. We can move to the next slide if you want. I would like to focus on two things tonight, which basically is international IP rights, intellectual property rights, and international data protection law. I pick up those two because you might know those are hot topics into the international arena. They're not the only ones, of course. There are many others. Antitrust is another one. I know Professor Vicente is an expert on that, so he will be explaining that a little bit to you. So I will focus on the first two. We can move to the next one. So if we would like to address intellectual property, it will take an entire semester, okay? In fact, there is a course which is International Intellectual Property Law, in which you address all different types of intellectual property, copyrights, patents, trademarks, trade secrets, licensing schemes all over the world, understanding the variety of protection that intellectual property is conferred in different legal systems. But as you probably know, there have been different attempts, many attempts of harmonization at the intellectual property level. Of course, one of the most important attempts of harmonization that the world has reached is the TRIPS agreement. We can move to the next one. So the TRIPS. So here is the thing. The TRIPS had a lot of comings and goings, as you might be aware of, during the Uruguay round negotiation back in the 80s, late 80s and the early 90s. So at the end of the day, in the mid 90s, we saw the TRIPS. Are the TRIPS good enough today? Well, for some countries, they are good enough. For some others, they are not. They would like to look for more IP protections. For some, it's too much IP protection. That's depending on the eye of who are looking through. But needless to say that the TRIPS set up for the basis of legal harmonization in the IP world. However, we have reached that level of harmonization. You don't have to underestimate the differences in IP rights in the legal systems. For example, what about copyright protection in the US versus copyright protections in small Latin American world? I mean, there's a difference between the copyright in the US and copyright in Latin America or even in Europe. What about patents, which today is a very, very hot topic? It is different in the US than in Europe than in Latin America, okay, especially for clinical trials, okay? Data protection regulations on clinical trials is not covered by the TRIPS agreement, which brings a very, very delicate issue, okay? And that issue came up with all the pandemic that we are going through today. So, as I said, and I will repeat this a couple of times, understanding legal framework is a key element if you would like to pursue a career on international business law. We will move to the next one, please. So, which are the challenges on today's IP? Okay, as I said, we have many challenges, not only in patents but also in copyrights. Can we harmonize the entire copyright law all over the world? It's a challenge. The European Union has made a huge progress through the European Court case law, which allow European countries to have some certain level of harmonization of the copyright law. But still, we have differences, okay? And even in patents, we tend to take a look on patents on medicine, but patents are a huge topic, much more broader than patents on medicines. Things about food, okay? What about seeds, modified seeds? Can we patent that? Well, in most Latin American countries, we can't, okay? Seeds or genetically modified seeds are not patentable by itself. They are protected by a different IP right, protected by the UPOV Convention, while in the US, you can patent modified seeds. So that's a very important issue about if you are advising, for example, a company working on the food chain in Brazil, which is a very important food producer all over the world. And this guy came up with the idea of modified seed for wheat. You advise to patent in Brazil or patent in the US? Okay, so that's, in order to answer that question, you need some knowledge of the US legal system, okay? So that's why I was telling you that it's important to know your advice clients in international transactions. We can move to the next one. I still see the challenges. We can move to the following. I don't know if you change it, Diane. Oh, thank you. Another issue that is pretty complicated today because of the World Wide Web is conflicts of law. Imagine that you have an infringement. Where are you going to bring a claim? Which court, which applicable law will you pick up? Traditionally, if you have a copyright infringement or a trademark infringement, you applied an equivalent to the law of torts. Basically, you bring the case to the judge where the damage happened. You would apply the law of that country too. But what about if you have a I don't know, you downloaded a book infringing copyright, and the book was downloaded in, I don't know, 50 countries, and you have to bring 50 lawsuits. That would be terribly expensive for your clients. So how do we harmonize conflicts of law in the era of internet? We can move to the next. Thank you. And related with the previous one, bringing a gap between IP and conflicts of law, we have data protection. Data protection is a very, very intricate issue, and is coming and is bringing more and more attention. Probably you might be aware of the last year European Court decision removing the United States from the safe harbor list in order to share data at the international level. So we're not seeing too many harmonization on data protection law. Countries are bringing different level of data protection. Even Brazil is different compared with Argentina, okay, and we are neighbors. And data is a key element of any international transaction now. In fact, even in the United States, data protection is regulated at the state level. So depending on the state in which you are located, you might have different level of protection. For example, being in California, for sure, wouldn't be the same as being in Wyoming. Okay, so on the other hand, if you want to take a look at the broader perspective and you would like to see some good practice standard, probably you will take a look on the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, which, as we speak, happens to be one of the most advanced regulation all over the world in terms of privacy issues. Okay, we can move to the next one. So to sum up the main ideas of this presentation, these are just examples, okay? As I said, just examples of why you have to understand major legal systems all over the world. And in particularly, would be important for you to understand US legal system for two reasons. The first, of course, is the importance, the strategic importance of the US at the global level as an economic player, okay? But on the other hand, you have something known as transplant effects. Okay, many times, whether you like it or not, you might end up applying U.S. law. Okay, you might be involved in a securities transaction with countries with no connection with the U.S. law, and you might end up applying Delaware law in a New York court. So it would be advisable for you to have at least some knowledge of U.S. regulations on business issues. The next one, please. That would be all on my side. I would like to thank you for these minutes of your time. As I said, these are just examples of the importance of understanding legal system, and I hope to see you in the near future as students on the online LLM, which brings you a great opportunity between the alliance that Mackenzie and the University of Dayton Law School have reached. So I think that I have finished. That's correct. I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Okay, good afternoon to those who are watching us from the US, and good evening to my Brazilian fellows. Dear Professor Walter Haves, dear Professor Margaret Ioannidis, and dear Professor Pablo Ianello, on behalf of University of Dayton. Dear Professor Fábio Bechara, dear Professor Gianpaolo Ismanio, and dear Professor Pedro Buch, on behalf of Mackenzie Presbyterian University. Today is a remarkable day. I'm so proud for having been invited by Professor Fábio Bechara to deliver some comments about transnational lawyers, and I would ask the permission of my colleagues to add transnational academics to this mix. But I'd like to initiate my lecture, which I promise you will not take too much of your time, inform you that the name of our honored institution, Mackenzie, is not a mere coincidence with the United States of America. The history of Mackenzie Presbyterian University dates from the 19th century, when Presbyterian missionaries and educators founded in São Paulo the Escola Americana, American School. They introduced in Brazil, until then an agricultural and pro-slavery country, a series of pioneering and innovative pedagogical practices, such as not having racial discrimination to determine the admission of students, co-ed classes, as well as the abolishment of physical punishments. But where did the name Mackenzie come from? At the end of the 19th century, the American lawyer John Tyrone Mackenzie, despite of having never visited Brazil, was interested in the country from what he read about it. Before his death, he donated a large sum of money to be invested in Brazil in a school intended to teach the modern knowledge of rail transportation technology. In 1896, the Escola de Engenharia Engineering School was established in a construction named Mackenzie Building, giving origin to Mackenzie College, which in little time started to offer several courses. In 1952, already counting with a six-decade tradition in higher education, a solid scientific formation, and a notable sympathy with the socioeconomic and technological realities of São Paulo and Brazil, the Brazilian government granted the institution the title of university, which led it in the following decades to become one of the biggest and most reputable universities in the country. The law school was established on the 11th of August 1953, which is the same date celebrated by the law community as the anniversary of the founding of Brazil's first law school in 1827. Mackenzie Law School is one of the most traditional and is ranked as one of the elites. Mackenzie Law School is composed of full-time scholars or high-regarded professionals, judges, prosecutors, and lawyers from the top Latin American law firms. The mixed cohort from different backgrounds aims to offer the student a full panorama from the law profession and formation. At Mackenzie Law School, students can fulfill their dream of becoming a first-rate lawyer, a legal professional, or a highly effective researcher. The LLM and PhD in Political and Economic Law of Mackenzie University since 2000 have stimulated and consolidated critical thinking for legal professional analytical capacity of the problems faced by the contemporary society. New problems trigger a paradigm shift in the legal sphere, creating new relationships among law, economics, and politics. The approach to law as a cultural phenomenon and as such an integral part of social reality allows candidates to face the great challenges and conflicts typical of a plural society and to offer even more complex answers to the growing social demands. A professional of law that aims to be complete, or at least close to that as much as possible, must comprehend the significance of a transnational lawyer and academic, and develop skills to be a citizen of the world. Today, we are here celebrating this partnership between Mackenzie and Dayton. I can envision the opportunities that are opening up for our undergraduate and graduate students. But why does such partnership matter? Looking back on my life, but I have to say that I'm not that old, I remember since my time at Mackenzie Law School as a student, how many doors and opportunities could be opened for a student, a lawyer, an academic that thinks transnational. Of course, thinking transnational, you will learn different laws. You can even become a lawyer with your American Bar Association to work in the US and earn in US dollar. Why not? But what I consider more important is the knowledge that you can get from different cultures, sometimes different realities, the friends that you can make, and the language, especially English, as a global language that you can improve. This background allows you to comprehend better your own reality, the needs in your own country, in your own legal system, and thinking of ways to improve. My experience, both as a lawyer or an academic, have taught me how important and necessary it is to be connected or transnational in a globalized world. This is especially true if I consider the area of law, and again, both as a lawyer as an academic, that I choose in my last year at the law school. and have been studying, researching, teaching, and practicing since then. Antitrust, known also as competition law. The origins of antitrust go back to 1890 in the US with the Sherman Act, which is considered the landmark of competition law throughout the world. The Sherman Act somehow influenced the Treaty of European Union in the part related to competition law and the Brazilian competition law. The scholars of competition law are global. The literature is global. The conferences are global. The exchange of knowledge, experience, and best practices are global. Personally, I don't like to comment on what I have accomplished, but allow me just to share with you a small glance into my professional life just to let you know how valuable it is to be a transnational lawyer and academic. Working in the field of competition law helped me tremendously to get my LLM, my PhD, and later on my postdoc, but also to be appointed as the director for Brazil of the Academic Society for Competition Law, Escola. Since 2007, I have been invited by CADE, the Brazilian Competition Authority, to be a non-governmental advisor, an NGA, at the International Competition Network, ICN. The ICN provides competition authorities with a specialized yet informal venue for maintaining regular contacts and addressing practical competition concerns. This allows for a dynamic dialogue that serves to build consensus and convergence towards sound competition policy principles across the global antitrust community. The ICN is unique as it is the only global body devoted exclusively to competition law enforcement, and its members represent national and multinational competition authorities. Members produce work products through their involvement in flexible, project-oriented, and results-based working groups. Group members work together largely by internet, telephone, teleseminars, and webinars. Annual conferences and workshops provide opportunities to discuss working group projects and their implications on enforcement. The ICN does not exercise any rule-making function. Where the ICN reach consensus on recommendations or best practices arising from the projects, individuals, competition authorities decide whether and how to implement the recommendations through unilateral, bilateral, or multilateral arrangements as appropriate. As an NGA, I am invited to join those debates, to give my opinion, working together with other NGAs such as academics or lawyers, together with competition authorities from more than 140 countries. In other words, what I have seen at ICN conference and best practice, which I have been participating since 2007, is that competition law is a transnational law. Not in the sense that same law will be equally applied in any country. Of course not. But the principles, the thesis, the doctrine is basically the same. I can give you some examples. One American company bought its French competitor. It was a transnational deal that affected the Brazilian market, which gives CADE, the Brazilian Competition Authority, the decision-making power over the case. After having analyzed the deal, CADE understood that it would harm competition in the Brazilian market and decided for the refusal of the deal. The deal had the clearance around the world in the different jurisdictions, but in Brazil, I was hired as a lawyer to represent the acquisition of the deal in Brazil for a Chinese company, which allowed CADE to give the clearance of the deal with the deal competitor entering in the market. In another case, some firms and individuals were being investigated for antitrust violation in different jurisdictions. This is an international cartel that allegedly also affected the Brazil internal market. As a lawyer, I was in touch with the American law firm that represents my client in the US, including personal meetings in New York, and the lawyers of that firm were in contact with me. As a transnational case, what is going on in the US can affect my client in Brazil, and vice versa. As an academic, the transnational experience has offered me some remarkable possibilities, and all of them are related to the people you know and start to get in touch with. Just to give you a few examples, organizing international conference in Mackenzie, hosting famous scholars and lawyers from around the world, being invited to give lectures abroad, being invited to write papers for books and reviews, and also my research for postdoc. And if you are still not convinced how transnational competition law is, let's think about big techs, the super digital platforms. They are in every single country performing their activities. Each country has its own law or multi-jurisdictional law, such as European Union. The discussions related with competition and big techs, the doctrine from academics from different universities throughout the world, the case that have been opened in the EU and more recently in the US, the same case in different countries, including Brazil, and the Digital Market Act in the EU, and the Competition and Antitrust Law Enforcement Reform Act in the US. Is it a national debate or a transnational one? Let me finish my brief presentation about transnational lawyer and academic, telling you about the most commented cartel investigation in Brazil nowadays. In 2016, preparing a compliance program for a client, I realized that the Department of Justice, DOJ, had just published a guideline on cartel in the labor market, human resources. In 2019, in a conference on cartels that took place in Washington, D.C., just one day before the American Bar Association antitrust spring meeting, the hot topic was cartels in labor markets. At that time, I must be sincere, everything was quite new to me. But I knew it was just a matter of time, and sooner or later, we would have this in Brazil. By the end of March 2021, CADE had officially opened a cartel investigation in labor market. Of course, CADE is investigating according to the Brazilian competition law, but the idea, the reference, the experience came from abroad. Mackenzie Law School understands how vital antitrust or competition law is to law students, researchers, and professionals. The Competition Law Study Group, GEDEC in Portuguese, was created in 2001. Competition law has become an important issue at Mackenzie since then. Since 2009, the GEDEC has been recognized by the National Council of Scientific and Technological Development. The objective of GEDEC is to study and research the legal and economic regulatory framework of competition in Brazil, analyze the Brazilian system of competition defense, cutting-edge issues related to competition, as well as competition as a policy for development, following the international debate and seeking the interrelation between academia and the market and the promotion of competition culture. At the undergraduate course, students must attend classes of economics and competition law. For LLM and PhD candidates, competition law is a subject in the market law theory and competition law and development classes. Well, I guess I actually have occupied a lot of your time telling some stories, but I presume it was a way to show you how lawyers and academics are transnationals today. Having said that, I have no doubt that the partnership between Mackenzie and Dayton is a remarkable achievement for those that intend to be transnationals. Dear professors from Dayton, I do hope to be able to visit you in person soon, and I also to host you here at Mackenzie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Bagnoli. I love your presentation, and I learned a tremendous amount. And we would love to host you in Dayton. And I can speak on behalf of Walter and myself and my colleagues at the Law School at Dayton. We would love to have the opportunity to visit your campus in Brazil. So we look forward to having that chance to do that. And in the meantime, we really appreciate the opportunity to be able to connect virtually through the webinar series. Between your presentation and that of Professor Ianello, you made my part of the presentation very, very easy, because you were able to identify all of the benefits of studying in an area of transnational law, pursuing the LLM degree, highlighting the benefits of having a comparative perspective on law, how this applies in law practice, especially in different fields, whether it's competition law, antitrust, law and technology, intellectual property, business law. These are all areas that have become increasingly transnational in practice. So we appreciate you sharing those insights and sharing your stories, and including the co-counsel discussion in New York, because that is something actually that I frequently discuss with my students and prospective students. I say, even if you're not planning to take the bar exam in the United States, even if you're not planning to move to the US to practice here, having that background is going to position you very well when you're engaging with law firms in the US. So I thank you for you sharing those stories. I also thank you for sharing information related to the history of Mackenzie Presbyterian. Actually, it's interesting because both of our universities then were founded in the 19th century. University of Dayton was founded in 1850. So it looks like we have a shared history there, and we look forward to building a new shared history together through this partnership. That's me on the slide. I'm Margaret Ioannidis, the director for the online LLM program. That means that I work with all the day-to-day operations for the program. With me, not on screen today, is my colleague Walter Hawes, who's been instrumental in working through the international partnership collaboration on behalf of the University of Dayton School of Law. I recognize some of the names here that are on the screen of participants. You've already reached out for additional information about our online LLM program and either engaged with me or with my colleague Walter. I am a licensed attorney. I'm actually licensed by the Florida Bar. I've worked in the field of legal education since 2010. I taught legal research and writing for about 4 years, and since 2014 have worked in the area of online LLM programs, and since 2018 with the University of Dayton School of Law. We can advance to the next slide. So a little bit of background. We've already discussed that University of Dayton was founded in 1850. We actually are recognized as a top tier national university and one of the 10 best Catholic universities in the United States. We have about 11,000 students on campus, and more than 1,000 of those are international students. We're a major research university, and we're located in the Midwest of the United States in Dayton, Ohio. So historically, students would be able to complete the LLM program on campus in Dayton, Ohio, and since 2019, we began offering a fully online option for students interested in pursuing the same degree. The reason for offering that online option was to be able to expand both access and affordability to the LLM program. So by offering the program in a fully asynchronous online format, students are able to join from all over the world. And there's no need for a student visa to be able to come to the US to pursue the degree. You're able to do it entirely online. And we are also able to make the program more affordable to students, both in terms of expenses that are saved from studying on campus, as well as passing the savings on through that online program as well. The concentration for our LLM in American and transnational law for those pursuing online is in the area of US law and legal practice. The reason for this is we found that many of the students who are interested in this, in pursuing this program and earning the LLM are interested in getting a better understanding of US law, both from a comparative perspective and also from that perspective of potentially being able to get licensed in the US as well. So we can move to the next slide. So we've talked about this a lot, so here are the specific details. Through the partnership that we have with Mackenzie Presbyterian, students are able to get several advantages. One of which, for those of you still working on your bachelorette degree, you are able to get an early start to the LLM program. Normally, students have to wait to apply to our program until they have completed their first degree in law. But through this partnership, you can start your LLM studies online as soon as you complete 7 semesters of bachelorette coursework. That means that you can simultaneously pursue both degrees, and within a matter of months after earning your bachelor degree, you're able to also earn your LLM degree. For those of you who are pursuing your master's program or your postgraduate degrees in political and economic law, whether again master's or PhDs, you are automatically eligible for 10 credits to be applied towards your LLM degree, and you're able to complete the program with only 20 credits rather than 30. So that is 8 courses. So as a little bit of background, an LLM degree is a graduate degree in law. Students that enter into this program have already completed their first law degree, and normally the LLM degrees are in specialized areas of law, and so they can be completed within about 1 year. So through this partnership, you are able to complete the program with as little as 8 months, and again with 8 courses, rather than the full 12 courses. If you are a graduate with your bachelorette degree, or if you are in your master's or PhD programs, you are able to automatically obtain 1/3 of the credits for the LLM degree based on the study you have already completed. If you are still pursuing your bachelorette degree, once again, you're eligible for placement out of up to 1/3 of the credits. That will be based on transfer in credit based on your studies. So we can move to the next slide. In addition to that, through this partnership, you're able to earn a guaranteed scholarship. So the total cost for this program, the total tuition is $9,500 US. Now that is paid per semester based on how many credits a student is taking in that semester. Again, you can finish in as little as 2 to 3 semesters based on the transfer in credit or advanced standing. You have up to 3 years. So depending how many courses you take, that is what you pay for in the semester. And the scholarship that is guaranteed is noted on this slide. It's $762 per credit, and that is reduced from the published tuition rate of $1,237 per credit. If you do the math, it comes out to almost a 70% scholarship for the LLM program. We can advance to the next slide. The reason for the early admission and also for the advanced standing or transfer in credit, as well as the guaranteed scholarship, again, goes to the mission of the University of Dayton to expand access to legal education to students from all over the world. So we really are very excited to be able to offer that opportunity to the Mackenzie students. We mentioned that the degree, the LLM degree, can be pursued on campus as well as online. Regardless, you get the same degree. The degree and the diploma do not reflect this as an online program. We can advance to the next slide. This is the curriculum. So we mentioned the LLM degree is in American and transnational law. The concentration of the curriculum is in US law and legal practice. And so you see here the list of the 12 courses. 10 of these 12 courses are on doctrinal subjects. These form the foundation of US law. They're also the subjects that most first and second year law students in the US complete as part of their Juris Doctor program. they are also the subjects that are tested on the bar exam in the US. So it is really important to get the foundation in these subjects. The other two courses are skills-oriented, the Introduction to US Law course, which, as I mentioned, Professor Pablo Ianello is teaching that in this summer semester, as well as the Legal Analysis, Reasoning, Research, and Writing course, which focuses on legal research, writing, and communication skills. We've noted in green those courses that you will have to take. Coming in through this partnership, again, you can reduce by 10 credits or 4 courses the total number of credits or courses to earn the degree. However, you have to take these 5 courses that are identified. The remaining 3 courses you can select from any of the other courses. And if you want to take all of the courses, you're able to do so. We will honor that guaranteed per credit scholarship of $762 per credit up to the full 30 credits. We can advance to the next slide. So for anyone who is interested in applying to the program, our next semester begins on August 23rd. The deadline is 1 month before that semester begins, so July 23rd, and completed applications are typically reviewed within 1 to 2 weeks. We can advance to the next slide. So I encourage you, and again, some of you, I recognize the names on the participants. You've already reached out to Walter or to myself. I encourage you to continue to do so if you are interested, whether it's for August, whether it's for a future semester, or whether you're just interested in learning more about the program. I encourage you to reach out to us. We look forward to engaging by email, and we can also set up individual Zoom meetings to answer any questions that you have about the program and how this might help you achieve your career goals, whether as a transnational attorney or as your professor mentioned, as a transnational academic. We can advance to the next slide. So in that context, we encourage you to join us. We have a Law in the Americas webinar series that meets monthly. You can advance to the next slide. Our next event is coming up on June 18th. This is on copyright law. The one after that is on August 19th. In July, a lot of people will be taking vacation, so August 19th will be the next event, and we've provided the website link for the Law in the Americas series. These events are co-hosted with colleagues and from professors from our other university partners and professors that are collaborating on scholarship with the University of Dayton counterparts. So we're really excited to be able to have these. They really provide comparative perspective on the subjects with a focus on comparative perspectives between Latin American and US laws. In addition to that, on June 11th, we will be hosting a program in law and technology. It's a full-day seminar that is hosted by University of Dayton. Normally, it's hosted on our campus, but this year, due to COVID, it will be completely online, and it is free for anyone who is a student. So if you're interested, we encourage you to visit our website for more information or to reach out to Walter or myself. We'd be happy to pass along additional information on that as well. Advance to the next slide. So I think now we've reached the point for question and answers. I know Professor Bagnoli graciously offered to answer questions as well. Professor Ianello has provided his email, so if you have questions related to his topic and we can't answer them here, we'd encourage you to email him. And like I said, Walter and I are both here as well. And you can unmute your microphone and ask the question. One option is to use the hand feature to raise your hand and you can unmute your microphone, or you can submit questions through the chat as well. So while we're waiting for the questions to come in, I can mention a couple of times we've gotten questions as well. Students have asked, well, if I pursue the LLM, which are the bar options in the United States? And so I can say that our curriculum and our program aligns with the requirements for Washington State and California. So those are two options for our students. Oh, it looks like two questions have come in. So let's see. Ana Cecilia, you can go first if you'd like to unmute your microphone.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
I'd like to know what's the validity of getting an LLM in Daytona University, and which countries or which, I don't know, maybe where in Europe, for example, could I use this degree for, or just in the United States, and which states, because I know there are different laws in different states. So
That's a great question. Thank you for that. So unfortunately, I cannot answer the question regarding Europe or countries outside the United States. The degree recognition would really depend upon each country. So whether some students ask this because they're planning to pursue a PhD or graduate degrees in law, others are asking in the context of applying for government positions, and others are asking about it in the context of applying to private practice positions. So I would encourage you, depending on which of those, if there's specific information that you need about the program to guide the authorities in that country, we're happy to share that with you. As far as the U.S. market goes, or even U.S. Law firms, the LLM, whether pursued online or in country, is fully recognized. So in terms of bar validity, that depends on each state. And so because of federalism, we have state laws and we have federal laws in the US. And so each state establishes their rules for bar admission. And included within those rules are the rules for the legal education requirement for bar applicants. And so that's where you look at, well, will a bar accept applicants who earn their first degree in law outside the US or not? And there are about 30 or so, maybe 35 states that will allow for that. Of those, then you look at what are their requirements. And so for those that require supplemental education, and most of them do, the exceptions are if somebody graduated from a common law country, or if someone has several years of experience, then there's a possibility for a different application process. But outside of those scenarios, generally when somebody's earned their law degree outside the US, there is supplemental study required through a US law school that is accredited by the American Bar Association. And in that case, bars will establish whether that has to be completed on campus or online. And so for the state of New York, for example, they require it be done on campus. As far as I know, that has not changed. There were some flexibility was given due to COVID, but in general, they've been very strict on that policy. California and Washington are two states that have allowed and that do allow for online LLM applicants to be able to apply for the bar. There could be additional states as well. Recently, I've heard potentially for Washington, D.C. and Maryland. So we are trying to get additional information about that for our students. But in terms of the degree recognition, it is recognized in the U.S. In terms of bar application, that would depend on each state bar. But for California and Washington, those are two options that I know of. And in terms of law firms, again, they would recognize that University of Dayton is a law school accredited by the American Bar Association. So I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free, please let me know.
Thank you so much. You explained a lot. Have a good one.
Thank you, Anna. Let's see, the next question, I believe, is it Flavia?
Yeah, no, I would like to know, I'm not sure if you've talked about that in the beginning of your talking, but I mean, do we need an English certificate to apply?
That's a good question. And no, I didn't cover that in tonight's presentation. There is an English proficiency requirement. Easily, this can be demonstrated with an 80 on the TOEFL or 6.5 on the IELTS within the past 2 years. If you have not completed those, or if you completed them more than 2 years ago, that's okay. We do have a waiver requirement. but you would need to just present alternate proof of English proficiency. That can be in the form of another assessment, whether it's Duolingo, Cambridge certification. It could be based on completion of studies, maybe in a bilingual high school where there was English instruction for years. It could be completion of English courses at Mackenzie. It could even be courses that you've completed if you participated in an exchange program and you participated in courses where the medium of instruction was in English. All of those are things that we can consider towards granting a waiver of the TOEFL or IELTS.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we have another question from Juliana.
Hi, good evening. I actually have two questions. The first one is, since the university is in Ohio, is there like validity to the LLM diploma in Ohio? And also the other question is, if I were to pass the California bar, for example, how would it work to change to New York?
Mm-hmm. So those are very good questions. So for Ohio, the Ohio bar requires that the courses be completed on campus and face-to-face instruction. So the online program would not be eligible for bar admission in the state of Ohio. So the follow-up question is a good one. I don't know the answer for New York, but the issue is, if you do pass, we know California and Washington are two options. So if you take either of those bar exams and you become licensed there, are you then able to apply for admission in another jurisdiction? So the answer there would be, it depends on that jurisdiction. The people that could answer that would be the state bar authorities for that jurisdiction. And so I would suggest, if you're interested in New York, to reach out to the New York bar and ask, if you are licensed in another state, are you then eligible to apply for admission based on that? And another question you could ask, because Washington State administers the uniform bar exam, and so does New York. So the question would be, if I take the uniform bar exam for the Washington State bar, is that score portable to the state of New York? I'd be interested to know the answer to that, but the same questions can be posed to other state bars as well. And for those of you who want more information on bar admission, the National Conference of Bar Examiners puts together a comprehensive guide to bar admission requirements, and that provides state-by-state guidance on what their requirements are. So that's a really helpful starting point.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Let's see. We have a question from, it looks like, Andre.
Hi, Margaret. Good afternoon.
Hi.
I'd like to know if in this LLM, during this LLM, if will we have some kind of support or backing about how to work in US?
Yep, great question. And so, yes, our career services, so University of Dayton's Law School has a career services office. That includes dedicated staff that are attorneys that have a background in career advising for law students. And so that career services office is available to our LLM students. They're able to provide guidance related to putting together your CV for a US market, setting up job alerts, searching for jobs, and even connecting students to alumni that are working in different geographic locations or in different practice areas.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's see, I think Mateus?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm just curious. I would like to know what the University of Dayton expect with the Brazilian students, the knowledge that would be exchanged, and what the use of law.
I couldn't hear at the end. You cut out at the very end.
Oh, about the Brazilian law, this knowledge being exchanged to people of the University of Dayton. What do you expect about it? Do you think this could be useful? Because I can see how useful it could be for the Brazilian students. But to the university, I would be curious to know, what do you expect about it?
Thank you. That is a great question. And I think this goes to the point that Professor Bagnoli mentioned so eloquently in his speech. I mean, the importance of transnational academics in addition to transnational lawyers. So this LLM program involves an exchange of ideas among all of our students. So students that are in this program, they come from all over the world. And they're not only able to interact with each other through the online LLM courses, but also are able to join student organizations that are on campus and are able to engage with the on-campus U.S. Dayton Law students. And so this really fosters a great exchange of ideas among the students, both in those student organizations. There are opportunities as well for those interested in doing research to be able to collaborate in those areas. And so it really is up to the students as they come into the program, depending on what their interests are. We try to make those connections for the students to the University of Dayton community, and for the on-campus community, we also extend that introduction and the opportunity to collaborate and network with our LLM students, because that's very important. You can pick up a book on US law anywhere, but the reason, part of the reason that you'd pursue the LLM is to be able to, build those connections and have that exchange of ideas.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And it looks like we might have some questions through the chat as well. I'm just going to check here. Let's see. Okay, so this is a question from Natalia. I would like to know whether PhD students can take the LLM during the course if there are full scholarship options. Okay, so this is a great question. So the first part, yes, actually, the program is open to PhD students, so long as they have completed law studies. So that is an option, and you can pursue both simultaneously. Of course, as part of the application, we want to make sure that a student is in good standing in their studies at Mackenzie. So we want to make sure that you're successful in both programs, but you can pursue them simultaneously. Walter, I'd like to defer to you for the full scholarship question.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Walter.
There is a program that's offered, and it's actually just in the process of being rolled out with Mackenzie, which is called the Law in the Americas Fellow Scholarship, whereby a student that has not previously applied for the program can apply for this full scholarship. And there will be a process of evaluating the applicants and selecting finalists, and then together with Mackenzie, one student will be selected per year for that scholarship.
Thank you, Walter.
Walter, may I jump in, Margaret?
Yes. Hi, Pedro. It's so good to see you.
That's great. Sorry. Thank you, Vicente, for the marvelous keynote speech. So what we can say is that till the end of the month, we will publish and promote this specific call for the scholarship. So we will inform all the students regarding this call. So you have just to wait till the end of the month. Okay?
Perfect.
Great,
thank you, Pedro. And thank you, Walter. So now everyone had a chance to get to meet Walter as well. So that worked out really nicely. And in the meantime, we had another question come in from Ingrid. So I'm just going to read it. Dear all, good afternoon. I have a question regarding tuition payment. Total value of the tuition is $9,500, but the students will pay the corresponding value of this tuition related to the number of credits they choose each semester? If the answer is affirmative, is it possible to pay the corresponding value of the chosen credits in installment payments? Okay, this is a great question, Ingrid, and it's one that we do get regularly. So I think the quick answer is students pay per the amount of credits that they are taking. Currently, there is not an option for installment payments for international students, but it is something that we are looking into. But I can give as an analogy, if a student took 2 credits of courses in a semester, and that could be one course. So Introduction to U.S. Law is a 2-credit course. With the scholarship, the total cost for that would be $950 for that 2-credit course, because the net tuition would be $475 times 2. And then that would be paid during that semester. And typically the semester runs about 3 months, and the billing happens in the first month or 2 of the semester. And thank you very much, Natalia and Rodrigo. Thank you for your kind notes in the chat. Thank you. All right, I think, are there any other questions? I know we went a little bit over the time, but this has been a great discussion. All right, as we maybe wrap up tonight's webinar, I want to once again thank all of you for joining us. We know it's a little bit later for you than it is for us here, so we thank you for taking some time out of your evening to join us today. We really thank Mackenzie Presbyterian University for this opportunity for collaboration. The webinar series has been amazing until the day we are able to visit your campus, so we will have to just visit each other via Zoom. And Pedro, you missed a wonderful presentation. I mean, we really enjoyed it, and we're glad that you were able to make it at the end.